keep us feeling safely separate from one another.
Absolutely.
And so this is an opportunity for us to gain access to the information that you've got. We can relate it back to Article 61. I'm not sure whether the gentleman I had invited to come to the meeting, which I apologize for not getting your okay before that. I just felt like put it out there because he's got loads of questions about the Article 61 stuff. And so I just thought put it out and see where it lands. So
Yeah, when there's with the Article 61, like I understand what's happening with that, but like I don't understand like the whole how it can only be standing on it alone if we're expecting laws to be kept, right? So like I'm exactly for Article 61, but I also see some diversions with it that could cause a little bit of destruction as well for people in a system that's already been created flawless. But the tools that, in my opinion, is the tools that are involved in the system right now that are not allowing it to be the way it's supposed to be. So, this is kind of like, when we're attacking at the government and we're trying to dismantle the government, it's almost like we're trying to dismantle ourselves. And when that happens, what kind of society do we have at that point? So, that's kind of one of my really big concerns with how it's being presented with Article 61, just as that acting alone. But, just to give an example of things like I've done a lot of history, a lot of research. I think by chance got like one time I wanted to just check out UK territory and on Google just did a little random search where you can look at the lands and everything, and I ended up falling right on the land of the Lincoln Cathedral of England, where they hold the three pieces of the Magna Carta, and it was part of where it showed where the birth of the democratic birth certificates were made, and that we weren't to be sold for justice. Like basically, I don't know how I got in because it wasn't like a tour where you pay money. I was able to access like any part of the place. I had like pictures. I think I have a link saved on my laptop if I can find it to get back in because I could never get back in after except with that link. But through everything it taught, that a lot of it stems back from religion, and it seems like a thing that's been going on for many times for many eons with Ottomans versus religion of Christianity or religion of anybody with a faith of God. That's not a person of living God. But through my searches, I've come across, I've done UN search, I've done, Universal Declarations of Human Rights. My first action became helping my niece who was in care of the foster care. She wanted out. She was 16 years old. They kept, giving all kinds of issues and problems, right? And just trying to delay. So as I started reading, well, first of all, I'd like to say I have a friend who's an international judge. Um, he was a prothonotary judge when I met him. My family knows him. He never really told me anything except very little few things that stuck in my head for a long time. And this is what I worked with. One was, you know, when something is true, if it's not written down, then it's not true. Okay, so if it was never written, then it never actually happened. So our whatever we say verbally has no effect unless it's been recorded. Okay. Um, if it was written, then it must be true, right? So if it was written in the law, it must be true, right? So when we get told by our elected government that, this act applies and they say, oh, no, it doesn't for whatever reason, they're supposed to be protecting us. That was what the right was supposed to be, to help us administer all this. But instead, they decided to be greedy and keep it all for themselves because none of us, or until now, none of us have known how to actually exercise those rights. Like when I first started searching, asking the place that gave out my birth certificate, for instance, does this make me an inhabitant of this land? You know what the response was? Well, you need a lawyer for that. I was like, whoa, why would I need a lawyer to ask such a simple question? Like, I'm just asking, does this verify me to be an inhabitant? So I knew something was there. Then I started calling in the archives, Vital Statistics Act, the archives of Canada and Ontario. I found out that yes, those certificates are property of the Crown. Then I started reading, my birth certificate and realized, wait, this says that it's subject to an act of parliament, like it's subject to an act, and that the use and conditions of the certificate are subject to those rules. So I started reading, and I begun to realize, okay, here's what's on a certificate, and it shows, and I looked at my certificate, I'm like, okay, this is exactly what I have. And I'm like, then I look down a little bit more, and it says like, so it's 43.1 talks about what's on the certificate. 43.6 says, which the in between is like death certificates, marriages, and stuff like that, says that all of these certificates are under seal, and a registered general and may bear the seal of office, right? So when you go to section 7 in that act, it says that the registered general shall bear the seal of office. Interestingly, it's kind of like, okay, so what does that mean? I'm a registered general. It says that I'm a registered general. It's been adopted and enacted as law by legislation in Ontario that this has been made, and it's been jurisdictionally noticed. But the people don't want us to get in front of a judge, because the judges are held accountable in such a regard that if you bring up a law, they can't say, no, that doesn't exist, because now they're held in contempt for not actually following this law, right? So we're having this issue between getting through to the people that are supposed to actually enact these things. So we have a lieutenant governor, say, we're supposed to be able to feed to the lieutenant governor information, but people are taking this information before feeding it to the lieutenant governor, saying, oh, this is valuable to give, this is not, and putting it to the side. So discarding most of our voices by their opinion, right? Which should not be happening. So now it comes to mind that, okay, so people are asking, well, so what is a registered general? That's what they keep throwing in my face. So this is nothing, right? So I start looking into acts of parliament, Canada acts, right? So everything trickles down, right? UK, everything. So I see in the Industry Act that, the registered general is responsible for registering anything under the Great Seal. And I'm like, okay, so now it's under the Great Seal. So I'm like, okay, so I keep going on. I keep searching into the UK because we have connections with the UK. When I asked even the people with the Vital Statistics Act, do we have any connection with the UK? They said, no, there's no connection. And I'm like, look at my certificate. I'm like, but it's got the coat of arms of Ontario. That's got the UK, symbol on there. Like we're part of the UK, right? So this also threw out more questions. So now I started going into UK laws and legislation, the archives. I spoke to the archives, the Senate, the Parliament out there through email, and I got confirmations back and everything verifying that these laws were enforced and that they're still applicable. But, and they even said it very clear that it was up to our interpretation to figure out what that was for us, right? Because we can't, but every law has an interpretation on it. So if you look on the interpretations, you'll see what the meanings are and everything. So they can't say we can't interpret it. So anyways, nonetheless, in Ontario, we have, the Osgoode Law School, okay?
What is that?
Osgoode Law School. It's the York University Hall Law School where they hold documents. You can get this online, okay? It's official documents, okay? This is like what I would say like the revised statute of Ontario in 1914, okay? These come in, when you print them online for each section, they come in small, they come in like this kind of form every time you print a section. So, for instance, Vital Statistics Act, okay? This is the first one that they had for Ontario, that they've had recorded in Ontario, in our laws in Ontario, okay? The meanings are truly the intent of what, who, and people are, okay? So, for instance, the definition here of a registered general, which signs our certificates, shall mean the member of the executive council for the time being is charged with the administration of that act. Okay, so when it's like when you hear parent, like father or dad, it's still one and the same. It's still the same person, right? This is like the same thing. So when you see registered general, it was actually an executive council that signed that certificate, okay? Now, there's a lot in here. It even says like a lot, like prima facie evidence. Hold on, it even says in here, this is, and you can find this, it's Article 52, and it is actually from the volume 1914, issue 1, Article 52, where the first one I just showed you is volume 1914, issue 1, Article 1. Okay, So this is the very beginning. Then you got the table of contents that I also have as well. They break it down into forms. So this one here is about 60 pages. But here it also reads that the certificate is prima facie evidence. Prima facie evidence is like, there's no better evidence that you could have than prima facie evidence. Okay, so I'll give you, this is what you have to know this, because if you actually read even the criminal, the crimes against humanity, as a registrar, we're actually the International Criminal Court, right? And we can exercise those, and we've been automatically like transferred to it. Like in Ontario law, it says that all inhabitants are incorporated as a body corporate under Section 4. In the City of Toronto Act, it says under Section 125 that the city is composed of its inhabitants of its geographical area. So that means that we're part of the city. That means we are the city. So for instance, if you're being told by the police that you can't do something because it's against city bylaw, but how are you telling me that I am against city bylaw when I am the city? So they gave us these powers, but the thing is, by speaking it, again, remember, it doesn't do anything, right? So when you hold certificates, when you hold things in your hand that are valuable, that say, this is the law, this holds you accountable, then they have to abide by that, because now there's actually records of what's being showed, right? Now, through a lot of my time trying to study, I realized that when I was making claims or trying to exercise something, I actually was asking it in the wrong format with the way the law is considered. I was actually more making statements a lot. I was more making like, this is the law and this is what I'm allowed to do. But I didn't say, this is the law and this is how I want it and this is how you're going to get it for me, right? So I'm kind of neglect for actually not exercising it properly as well, because those people are bound to make sure that evil people don't get a hold of this stuff, right? Because if they're going to use anything for bad, they don't want to help those people out. They're stripped of their rights if they're going to be acting in an evil way. But so they have to make sure that they make it difficult, but they shouldn't make it as difficult as they've been making, right? Like there should be some sort of leniency, like, when people are trying, they're acting in good faith, like they should be really holding a hand, towards them, look at something and see. But anyways, there's a lot of issues where I have a lot of recordings. Okay, I actually tried to exercise one of my rights a long time ago. I had a car accident about in May 2016. I'm good and everything. I had some little bit of mental distraught because I lost pretty much a lot of my stuff that was happening. But it actually was a gift, because it kind of pushed me to doing all of this, because I started getting pushed around and pushed around. But nonetheless, during that time, I got my niece out of foster care. Sorry, I got a little bit of ADHD a bit, so I might be a little.
Great.
Yeah. But I helped my niece out of care. So what I did is, they came to me and they wanted me to do a criminal record check, and I have no problem doing that, right? And I went to go to the police station to go do it. But you see how I am with technology right now? Well, the police was like really like in a inviting voice, was like, the computer's over there, right? And I was just like, oh, okay. So like I couldn't really do it. So I asked, the CAS if they could do the search for me and I'd give consent, and they said no. And unfortunately, because of that, there was a demise between me and being able to have visits or even having them come stay with me, right? So I couldn't sleep for days, and all I could do was just study, study, study. And the first thing I brought out, I have actually a record somewhere of it. And what I basically said to my niece, because I only talked to her through messengers, I said, are you sure you want out? Like, I don't want to push you, and this, you have to be like wanting to do good with yourself, and you have to like, do things. And she was like, yes, and I was like, okay, I'll help you out then, right? So I wrote her this letter. I said, what you're going to do is you're going to print it out. You're going to sign it if you agree. And what it basically entailed was that I, Kayla, whatever her last name, everything, just release myself from care. Anyone who tries to hinder me will be held liable and accountable for kidnapping or containment. Why didn't anybody tell me of my rights of section blah blah blah? And I put down all this, just the sections, and then I put down. I can't remember exactly at the end, but anyway, she signed it. And she calls me up and she says, my foster parents aren't going to let me go. And I said, well, you tell them that they're going to be held accountable. Then this is law. And anyways, the foster parent called me the next morning because I had planned with my niece that I was going to pick her up in 2 days, regardless if she wanted to do it. I wasn't going to go through if she didn't want to do it. And our foster mom calls me and says, can you come and pick her up on, a day before? And I was like, sure. So I went there, recorded everything to make sure that they weren't going to say I was like forceful or, whatnot. And I got her out. About 2 days later, her foster care worker, I guess, was like calls up and starts asking her questions. She's on the phone, and we start recording it on Facebook Messenger. Like we can do the recording, so you can't really like mess around with that kind of stuff, right? It's once it's said, it's said, it's there. So, anyways, in one breath, she was really in shock. And then she's like, well, you put your foot down and there's nothing we can do to physically bring you back. And then in the next breath, she said, what I'm thinking we could do is we could do, protective custody, and it's the only thing I could really think of in order to not have the police come and bring her back home. And I was just like, whoa, I was like, you know what? I was like, you do what you got to do. Right. And then she's like, no, I don't want to cause, I don't want this to be a problem. I wanted the best interest for her. And I said, so do I. So why are you doing this? Right. Anyways, then she started saying, well, how are you going to get her birth certificates to get her into school? And I said, well, I'm going to get it from the foster parent who's going to go to the principal, and they're going to transfer principal to principal. And she's like, well, we can't do that because, we don't agree. And I said, well, it doesn't matter if you agree or not. This is my blood. This is what I say, right? And I basically hung up. Well, we basically hung up, right? Told them all the information she wanted to know, but she was in shock. And then I phoned the ombudsman, and I told the ombudsman education, because you have to go to the proper departments too when you do something, right? So I went to the ombudsman of education, and I said to them, this is the situation. I told them exactly what was going on. And I said, they're not giving her birth certificates to get into school. So if I go register her and they refuse her, what do I do? And they said, well, if they refuse you, then call us back. So what I did is I went to the school, got her a meeting. I said to them, I said, I don't know if you guys are supposed to deny me first, and then I'm supposed to go to the ombudsman about this, or if you guys are supposed to do all the paperwork. I don't know how this works out. And then, I had her in school within 3 days, without any identification. They kind of proceeded to harass and go to her school and stuff like that. And so I decided I was going to go make it to court and just go. I wasn't forced. I just decided I was just had enough with this shenanigans. And when I went in, my sister, who gave up her children voluntarily, was there with her lawyer, and then the children's lawyer, and the CAS lawyer, and everything. And they were kind of putting me down a lot and talking bad about me. And I didn't even do anything wrong. I was just advocating for my niece. And so after they were done, I just politely said, Your Honor, may I speak? And she said, yes, please. And I said, I don't believe I've done anything wrong. I believe all I've done is advocate for my niece as she's asked me to. I've never denied her access to the service. I've never told her not to call the service. And, and she goes, well, why won't you let anybody come to your house? I said, well, Your Honor, I believe I have something called the Privacy Act. And while she was doing paperwork, she looked up like this and she's like, yes. And right after that, I don't even know how it happened, but all of them seemed to have agreed, like without any conversation, that I was to have full custody of her. And, the judge is like, can you please let someone just come see the house? I said, well, the lawyer can come over when he signs the paperwork and he can look at it, and period. And they said, okay, that's good. So he came over, he said to me, because you've done something nobody's ever done before, you've shook the system. And I was just, I don't know, I just did what I felt I needed to do. I had fear of my niece being in a bad situation. You hear a lot of like horror stories of kids being taken away and never being brought back, And, just to my recent surprise too, I didn't even know, but I had 2 kids that I just was told about like a month ago that are 18 and 19. And they were given to a foster parent. Anyways, sorry, but they came and contacted me. But But anyways, they're crooks. They kidnap and everything. But you know, a lot of people, like, you know, you hear on the news that police are only taking orders. They just following orders, but they're following orders by people that know the law pretty well, and there's nobody to know and defend it. And I'm gonna be that person because it's too much chaos going for our people everywhere in this world, and it needs to be stopped immediately. And you know, I don't know if you guys know, but I mean, I sent this thing up for crimes against humanity and genocide. I don't know if you watched the news yesterday, but the parliament had a vote, 266 votes to zero, that China communists is committing crimes against humanity. Okay, and they're starting to look at the scope of what's happening here within Canada with it as well. I had a reply back, thank you for the notice. This is I got to keep fighting, but anyways, we need to realize who we are first of all before we can actually take them down. Because the police, when they don't know that, like, the police want us to uphold, to do something, but they have to do what's being written to them. That's part of the law, unless we can tell them that they're doing something wrong. And you know, I sent to the Attorney General, Ministry of Justice, about the crimes against humanity. This holds every person bindable, the Crown and Right of Ontario, the Crown and Right of Canada, every military commander, every supervisor of a police force. They're all accountable for all their agents, and they've been sent notice. And you know, I don't know if this had something to do with their meeting yesterday. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I know when they were trying to do this pipeline, like, I'm not against pipelines, but I'm against the destruction of our environment and the farmlands. I'm at, you know, against people that are running right now that have no care for the world, for us, and only for the money. And if they can fix something for pipes going through that are totally safe, that we know that can sustain shocks, earthquakes and things like that, then, you know, maybe it's viable, right? But until then, like, we can't guarantee those other nature things. So the true thing that I really need to bring forward, I think, is that, you know, here's this here, right? The certificate from Canada. Okay. Here is a seal of office, of the Office of the Registrar General.
And that's your long form, right?
Nope, this is the new short forms. This is the new one. So if you lose your small one or you get a new one, this is the new one. Okay. Now, if you look on the back, I don't know if you can see it, but it says that it's, let me find it and put my finger around it first. Right around where my finger is.
If you move over,
We
just
talked about the Vital Statistics Act. Sorry. Oh,
it's too small for us to be able to.
okay. I'll read it out. What it says is, this certificate has been issued under authority of the Vital Statistics Act. Use of this certificate is subject to the conditions of the Act. The certificate may be recalled, canceled, or invalidated in accordance with the Act. So invalidated in accordance with the Act would mean that you fraudulently gave your information and you aren't who you are. That's the only way that it can be taken away. Okay. Now, when you have a law that says if you have a certificate that, or an instrument or document under any act, wouldn't this document of Canada or Ontario, wouldn't this document be applied to any instrument, certificate, document under any act if it says that? Right? We can't let these people that are in politics telling us, oh no, that doesn't apply. How can it not, when the law says, and it's been jurisdictionally noticed and the contents of it, that any certificate, right? They can't deny that, but too many of us aren't seeing what the true definition is of it. Now, another thing is, under Ontario, is we have a thing called the Security Transfers Act. And it says everything that is basically on here, that you have the power. Actually, I got a little bit of fast. I've done a lot of write-ups to try and angle and cover and close in on everything so that they can't deny what is the truth. And I've done pretty good on that. First of all,
Thank you for what you're doing.
oh no, it's okay. You know,
The diligence that you've went through the effort to put this together. So carry on.
someone needs to do it. You know what? You know, some of my friends, they've, you know, I've lost contact with some of my friends. You know, some of my family have like, you know, they don't know what to think. But then other families are like, wow, you're like really onto something and keep going, and they're supportive. You know what I mean? And you know, thank goodness I have that still. You know what I mean? But you know, like here, I've taken things, for instance. Okay, let me just organize this here.
Thank you.
Has your friend meant text you or anything? Is he not? He's
No.
just not.
No, but it's just all how it's meant to be. This is like it's exactly how it's meant to be. And if you like, I just feel like this is the thing. It's like when we raise our heads above the parapet, we then become the targets of both the opposition and the ones that are in disguise, and then the true seekers.
That's right. That's right. I mean, by the Constitution, we are the executive councils of we are the executive council of Ontario, and we are also the lieutenant governors of the provinces for life, right? So we're ultimately we ultimately are in charge of the police and tell them what to do, right? But we have to put everything right. If it's not in writing and we don't verify, like I am this person and this is my identification, then they won't look at it, right? They don't apply it because you have to be part of that organization, that union, because our organization and union is of love and is of God and the supremacy of God. And that's our unionization. If you're not part of that, then you're part of the bad, and therefore you should not be part of it, right? And we have the authority to take out these governments and these authorities at a whim for them doing what they're doing. But the politicians don't have the authority.
Did you say the unionizing shield of God?
Pardon me?
Did you say the unionizing shield of God?
No, they're okay. Like they're like the union of like of all of the UK say is for the shield of God. It's under the shield of God. Okay, and what it is that you know because it comes out of the Link Cathedral, it comes out of like stated way back into the Link Cathedral, back into 1000 when that building was built. It was built in the 1000s, and it's like the longest. It was even the tallest building. Here's how to explain it. We had really bad people and we had good people and we had just the common people, right? And what happened is the bad people were going around and they were just torturing everybody. They were like, you know, being malicious and going in, raping, killing, stealing, just doing whatever. So they had to form this. This was something that had to be formed. If we break this, we're going to lose it all and we're going to go back to all of that. And that's why my concern of just working on Article 61 is a little disturbing to me because of everything will stop and there's no actual protections for anybody because then nobody has a role, nobody has a title, nobody's responsible, and therefore that's our destruction, right? And so what we need is we need these, like, okay, when people realize, like I've heard a lot of people say that we're not even in the Constitution. We don't apply to the Constitution. Well, that's a big problem to me because I see we're applied everywhere in the Constitution. Okay, so and I'm going to show you exactly in terms of what I mean. Under Section 4 of the Constitution of 1867, it says, unless it otherwise expresses or implied, the name Canada shall be taken to mean Canada as constituted under this act, okay? So I have Canada here, just Canada. Doesn't imply anything else, okay? Also around this birth here, that embroider, that there says Canada, 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 over and over and over and over again around it. Okay. On your license, just like your license and your health cards, at the back it says there's 12 restrictions, limitations and restrictions. Yep. Okay. Now you see the barcode above it? Yeah. You see the barcode above it?
Yeah.
Right above, no, above where it says 12 restrictions. It's actually your name repeated over and over and over again. Yeah, but your name is repeated over and over again. And your name should be about 7 times there and 4 times on the other side. And plus your pool is the 12 restrictions and conditions. Okay. Yeah, right on the very top. Yeah, right over top of it, you'll see your name printed over and over.
Yeah, that line just says Laura Jean Ellen.
Yeah, now look at on the other side on your picture, on the right side of your picture, it says it 4 more times. That's 11. And then you have it in capitalized letter once on your main part. That puts 12.
Yep.
Now,
it's all, yeah, all correct.
right. So this certificate, do you have your okay, can you go to do you have another phone or something available to go on the e-laws? If you go to the Consumer Protection Act.
Okay. Consumer Protection Act.
Yeah, the Consumer Protection Act. If you're in Ontario, it should just automatically bring you there.
Your rights under Consumer Protection Act, Ontario.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah. And then you go to government checks, like it's part like or part 7 or 9 or something like that. So you go down the scroll when you open it up, and you'll go to government checks, and it'll define what a federal government is. And I believe our certificates do, make us a body of this country. And I'll show you other proof to that as well. But under there, it'll say a federal government is blah, 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 plus or any other body.
Would that be under rights reserved under Part 2.6, consumer rights and warranties?
So where do you go after that?
Oh, okay. Go into, you're there. Okay, so hold on, maybe.
You go under CPA. There should be a link that you click through.
Go to e-laws, just go to e-laws first.
Instead of Consumer Act?
Yeah, because you're gonna get it through there. You're gonna get it through there. So you can see the full extent of that it's officially been documented.
E-laws Ontario?
Yes, correct. Okay. Are you both from Ontario?
Yeah.
And
okay.
Where are you?
Yes, same. Yeah.
I saw your certificate.
Pardon me?
I said I saw Ontario on your certificate.
Yeah, we're all Ontario. So that this applies this applies everywhere across all provinces. And I'm going to tell you something else through the laws I also learned is we also are the Register General for England and Wales, while acting on behalf of in the name and on behalf of Her Majesty. Okay, so we have given crazy amounts of power, but we are the ones that have lacked using it because we have been tricked on how to exercise it. And I gone to church, used to go to church a lot with my grandmother when I was younger. And I remember always hearing, if you ask, you shall receive, right? This was actually, if you look back, Mary, not Jesus, Mary's mom, but Mary, King James or something like that's daughter, opened up this fund for all of us. And this was a fund that was supposed to be cast about for all of us, right? It's been hidden forever. This was supposed to...
Like Mary, the sister of Elizabeth that was cast out?
We're looking, I would, well, in the time of around 1100, 10 or 11, maybe 1200 BC, somewhere around that time is when this fund was created for us. And it's actually the Church of England. And what happened was, if you remember during Jesus's death, what happened is the Roman Catholics took up Christianity. At one point, they took over England. When they went back to Rome to protect their land, they left this fund under the Roman, and they opened up the Church of England. And this is part of our inheritance of life, of being people of God, like that we're God's people. And this was our signification of being God's people. So them taking this away is just, it's so Like when I see Article 61, I know everyone means so well, but there's got to be more than just say, hey, everything needs to stop. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Fully.
it's like, how do you say Article 61 applies, but no other law applies? How can that even be, you know, in my view, how can that be, how can you expect it to be applicable if nothing else has been applied? You know what I mean? Like we have human rights, you know, which has been signed by 193 or 198 countries to date that all agree on those same principles of being united under those human rights and, you know, being denied by political, social origins or anything else like that. Like I see it like this, like our rights of human rights are supposed to be, and this is what we all have as our laws. This is what we're all supposed to hold as our laws. And if we don't hold this, we should be stripped of our rights because we're not allowing people having their rights. So say for instance, you know, someone's asking me for a home and I'm in that position that I'm supposed to be giving somebody a home and I refuse that. I should be refused that right because, you know, the only time I should refuse somebody a right to a home when they're asking me for a home and I'm in that department is if they already have homes, right? And there's other people that don't have homes. Then it's okay to say no, you don't, you're not getting a home because you already have all these homes, and when other people need a home, right? So you always have to make sure that the people are always taken care of. Yeah.
What is the definition of a home? Because technically the vessel that we came into this world in is the home that we, the sovereign being of me, exists within. So
Right.
technically we were all provided for in coming here.
Right. Okay, so you know, back at the beginning, people when they came here, they actually used to go to one tent, another tent, and another tent. Okay, one tent would be to register, the next tent would be to grab their keys or something like that for their house. They would go, you know what I mean? Like, or their pass for whatever tent they were given, you know what I mean? But this is like even back when they had the land rush. The whole land rush was, hey, you know, let's get all these people out here, but we're gonna hold them accountable for X amount of time to get a certain amount of things done because we don't want them just to come in here, take the land, sell it, and use it for bad use. We want them to put heart to it. But because our generations before have obviously done that, they've stayed on the land and they put heart to it, we were given those inherited rights to it and the control. So we all jointly own the land, right? So we have a right when we have this many people in poverty that if we see a home that's vacant for 3 months and not being used and there's somebody that's in need of a home, we have a right to place somebody in there and expropriate the land. Now, a lot of people ask, okay, well, this could create a systematic issue for other foreign countries and so on and so forth. Well, not really, because we can actually write that off and give them their money back. It's called like expropriation, and everyone has a chance to still get their money and get what they deserve for what was taken from them. But if it's being used for a purpose that is to promote human right, then we have a right to expropriate a place that's sitting there nobody's using to put somebody in a house, especially in Canada where we have climate problems. Well, not problems, but climate changes where we can't just sleep outside all year round if people are homeless. You know, we need people in safe conditions, and it's a right that should be given to everybody here. I don't care if you say, you know, like I just see it this way. Like some people have an argument saying, well, you know, if people don't do this, then you know, then how you know it's not fair to this person. But well, how is it really fair for anybody to be homeless? How is it fair for anybody? Is it even giving them adequate opportunity to become part of society if they don't have something, right? And then the definition of keeping us in servitude. I mean, we've been in servitude, the fact of by bondage, and you know the fact that we are continuously trying to pay off our bills just to try and keep our heads afloat was against the Constitution. Like I see Canada is like a place where when we have tourists come, they pay, you know, they hire, you know, pay rents. We want to get them coming here because we have a nice, good country and we want them to spend money. You know, when people come here and they want to move in, they take part in the system to try and actually, you know, keep it moving, while other people get to kind of move out and kind of, you know, supervise over the new people that are now executing the system. And it should be a chain that it keeps constantly coming back. But the other attack that I feel is happening on us And I feel that a lot of people that are Canadian people are the ones that are being targeted in most cases. I mean, they're the ones that are losing a lot of their rights. And I believe what's happening is, children being taken away is a way to eliminate births, because people don't want to have births because they're too afraid to have their children taken away, right? Or taking a child away and taking away from their culture and who they are and what they might believe, and not being able to teach them what I know, say today, I wouldn't be able to teach my kids because of that, right? But I still can, but like, let's say I never see them again, I would never be able to lead all this rules and all this constitution and power that are supposed to be brought forward override the politicians. Like a politician can act like us as an individual, right? If they're from here, but they can't act in their capacity as a politician to enforce what they want to enforce, if that makes any sort of sense. Like, just because I'm like, I might be a crown on Ontario, it doesn't give me the right to just go and, take from somebody or deny someone else's right. And I think the whole concept of everything is that when we read the Constitution, we don't verify our identity within the Constitution by title, then then we then you don't have anything to protect you, because you're protected by the Constitution. We have natural rights as people in the Constitution. But in here it is. Okay, I'm trying to just figure where else to go. There's a place in here I wanted to say. Okay.
While you find that, I'm just curious how this ties into squatters' rights.
Squatters' rights. Well, okay. The squatters' rights is it's okay. It's actually law, and they actually have proven that it is law. And what it is that when somebody knows like their right, like for instance, I just got a parking ticket. So I guess this would be a good example. My brother was out, he parked somewhere in one of these, like he was in a whatever community condo place. They gave him a ticket, and they alleged that I parked in private property without the consent of the owner. Okay. Now, when I look at Toronto property and I am the city of Toronto by law, am I not the consent that all I need if I am the city and I am the property? So what I did is I actually fought on that, and I sent them something 2 days ago, and it basically they said that I gave me a violation form under blah blah blah, and I said that I was putting them in violation under I said this is an act respecting the Legislation Act, the Municipal Act, and the City of Toronto Act, where your Form 1-2 has been in violation of this. And then I put down in the forms that, and then I put down, it's alleged here that officer number blah 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 blah, unit number blah, under receipt number blah blah blah, has alleged that I parked on private property without the consent of the owner. And then I put another thing after that, saying basically my administration fees were having to write to them. And I put down that for the first offense would be $500. For the second offense, if done by the same officer, would be $7. And if done by the third, would be $1,000 plus suspension. So, and then I put down on a note that the money that they were going to be paying, or that the funds was going to be coming from to pay this, was going to be from the place that was asking me to pay them. And so I'm waiting on that to come in, but it's sent to the police kind of district sort of situation. So you know what? They're gonna have to uphold the law. The law is the law. That's what they're there for, to uphold, right? So what I've done in the last 2 days, is gonna be interesting, because if they're not upholding the law, then there's a big problem going on. A really big one.
Are you standing under Article 61 of the 1215 Magna Carta?
No, I haven't because I'm not really good with forms. One of my weaknesses is I'm really good avid reader. I can like systemize where everything belongs and fit the pieces together in puzzles. Really bad with administration. I'm really bad, like, I've never really done any taxes because I just don't know the forms. I've asked so many times for help and everything. They always give me like, you got to do this, you got to do that. And then to me, it's just like, it's so much like, I guess we all have like maybe certain skills that we're all really gifted at. And I'm just not gifted in that avenue anywhere near it. I don't know why, but I'm not. I mean, maybe the same way people might look at me like, how do you not know that? I might look at them like, well, how do you not know all of this? You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it's kind of like just a skill set. We all have like a skill, right? So I'm hoping maybe what skills I might have could be represented with other skills, right? But I think lately I was really bad with forms too, but I'm starting to actually make my own forms and complete my own forms. Like, I don't know if you saw on the site or anything on Telegram that some of the documents that I put out there and how it was written out. These are the ways that we have to kind of like assert who we are. We can't just say, I am Steve and I have this right. You have to claim that I'm Steve. I hold this certificate. It's under an act of parliament, which means I am a government of the land, and we are the government of the land. But you have to be 100% confident in that title too. You can't just be like, well, that's nothing. What do you mean that's nothing? That's part of the executive council. I actually own the land. I'm registered with the Ontario Register General. You can go see my registrations held in that office. And in when it talks about like if you hold like under the Companies Act of the UK, it says that any certificate that is signed by a Register General in any association is conclusive evidence that all requirements and registration under that act has been duly complete. So how do you, like, there's so much evidence that they can never, like, even you have to know who you are, and you have to know where it came from. So that's what I broke down. I had to break that down. I realized that I had to go down to the birth certificate when I did all my studies for like 3-4 years. It broke down to where did it begin. So I broke down where things began, and then I began where do I begin? What happens, like, where did I begin? And I started going, okay, what's the first things that are issued to you? So I looked at it and I was like, oh, because you know what? Most of the small cards, the smaller ones, the older ones, it actually is on there too, believe it or not. But it doesn't say that whole description. It just says in very small fine print on your older birth certificate, it says Vital Statistics Act. It says it on every birth certificate. It's just so hard to find. It's so hard to see. You have to really look for like a little bit. But it is there. But if people don't realize what the power is, like under legislation, a proclamation is anything that's issued by the Lieutenant Governor. In the preliminary, the Lieutenant Governor is also the Executive Council administrating on behalf of the Government of Canada. So again, one and the same. The Lieutenant Governor, the Executive Council, the Register General are one and the same. But then I have a law that says that I have the same powers that the transferor had power to transfer. So I got the same powers, right? I mean, that's undeniable. It's all in the way. Pardon me?
Because you're a sovereign being.
That's right. We are sovereigns. And you know what? That's another thing. When I heard about free movement people, okay, I said, it's a shame because they know they have that freedom, but they think that they have that freedom without law. But they have that freedom because of the law, if that makes sense, right? So I was like, man, if they could just realize that, like, I didn't want to be associated with the freedom people because they were aggressive and they were like pushing and this and that. I was like, no, there's got to be a different way. This is not right, you know? But it came down to, I keep hearing, if you hear on lots of scripts, we're just taking orders. We're just taking orders. We're just taking orders. That's what the police always say. We're just taking orders. I mean, you'll even hear the people talking on the government. Like they had a one where the woman said, and I don't know if you heard this one before, where she's on it, that they put it on YouTube. I'm just reading what they tell me. I don't know. Did you ever see that one? It's like the Minister of Health talking on Canada on the news, and she said that like just before they started. I don't know. I'm just reading what they put on here. But she's our minister on our behalf. You see, that just shows like the authority that they don't really have, but the authority that someone is writing. So let's say now we have someone who's a crown or sovereign like us on the land, right? And they're defying law. Because they have for all protection, the only people that can actually prosecute them are the people of their own land. Does that make sense? Because anywhere else, it's different, right? So if we have, say, 10 people that are crown people that are acting on signatures on our behalf or they're for our behalf, whatever, let's get 1,000 people to have the same knowledge and to write, we don't agree. Because guess what? Majority rules. So if we have the same equal status, but we say, no, we don't agree with this, and we, the majority, rule on that, then we get it. But we also have to remember that anything that we actually make as law can never infringe on someone else's right. So you have to remember that human rights always applies in every decision and every thought that we make in the process of exercising our rights. So the moment that we can't say we respect the human rights and then at the same time hit somebody, right? You know what I mean? How can you say that you respect human rights but yet hit somebody at the same time when you've just infringed on their right because you have an opinion to believe, but that person has an opinion, has a right to not live with fear or without abuse. So when you have to take someone out, when your thought infringes in someone in that way, or your belief, mentally, physically, whatever, then it shouldn't be applied. And this is where we can actually fight against people that have infringed, because that's now considered a crime, in my opinion, against humanity, right? Because you're actually trying to disrupt humanity as, in part, as a whole, you are trying to disrupt them. And, you know, when I hear our government today, it was really interesting because I was watching it was like 5 hours after like maybe 10 hours after I sent all this stuff, and I hear them talking about, you know, the government, Trudeau didn't show up and the cabinet didn't show up to this vote that was 266-0 with the crimes of humanity happening. And the defense guy was the only one that showed up on the team. And he was saying it doesn't meet the criteria, but yet you got 266 people that say, no, it is. So if we have the Minister of Defense in our own country saying that that doesn't meet the definition when they actually had 100% proof that they were, you know, sterilizing people in China, they were holding them in camps for religious purposes. They were, these are all proven that they've actually come as evidences and everything, and that's why they made this vote. 200, you should look at it, I'm sure you'll find it, 266 votes to 0 that China was committing crimes against humanity. And this is like, if our own Minister of Defense is not seeing what a crime against humanity is, this is why this is happening. Does that make sense? If they can't defy that, like, for instance, an identifiable group. You have a masked group and you have an unmasked group. That's identifiable groups, right? If you're not COVID, if you're not vaccinated, then you are an identifiable group because you can't get inside a grocery store or something later on. We'll just say that's what they're trying to do. Then you are being attacked as an identifiable group because you're the identifiable group of the person who didn't take the vaccine, right? And in as the defense minister said, oh, but you know, it doesn't. You need to have more than, you know, just that one or just that few. But in the Roman statute, which defines that you only need to have any one of those things, any one, just one, to be committing a crime against humanity. Rape, that's a crime against humanity. Okay, regardless, whether the law wants to look at it that way or not, those police officers, if you've seen how these rapists are getting away with bloody murder, getting out on the streets, doing it again and then and again and again, where people who are trying to survive for food get thrown and locked up in jail for years and have criminal records, or people that are stressing for help are, you know, for instance, like the CAS used to be a place where people could say, you know what, I need help for my kid. Now they're afraid to go there even if their child needs help. That's a problem. You know what I mean? Like, this is where we as the people allowed it. Like one guy said, we did allow it because we did not take our positions, right? But then again, another thing too is being so divided, as where one family unit, you know, only one person might have that gift to know what's going on. And then how do you get all those people with those gifts together? Which obviously is starting to happen because of all the commotion and everything, right? But it's like, I don't know, we need to go further, like not further back, but realize who you are as an individual, how you're placed in your position, where you are today. Like, for instance, whatever city you were born in. Actually, just to tell you the truth, actually, in the preliminary, the cities, any cities like the city of Toronto, all those places, they're considered a private act. They have no jurisdiction over us. That's funny. I mean, it says it in the preliminary. It even says it, I think, in legislation of 2006, but it says in the preliminary of the issue 1, volume 1, issue 1, volume 1914. These documents are very, like, this is what they learn in law school. This is how the records, the books that they have to use and practice off. Like, this is not, when you go look at the York University, Osgoode York University, it's like the top law school, I think, in Ontario. You've never heard of it?
I've not.
No?
Not until you've mentioned it many times now.
I'm familiar.
But every province has a university that represents their city and the agreement, the rules that come with it, right? And
company?
Pardon me?
Did you say that rules that company?
That rules the company, because see, cities are companies. Mm-hmm. They're just companies. They're corporations. That's all they are. And we, as the Ontario holders, we actually operate those companies. We're actually the ones that we have to assume a responsibility. Like, it's like, okay, if you run a company and you run a company and you ran it for 5-10 years or something, and you decide at one point, you know what, I'm tired, but you know what, I want this company to keep going, so I'm going to hire a bunch of people. I'm going to go on vacation, I'm going to do whatever I want. A couple of years goes by, you get bored. Does the owner have to call up anybody, all the employees or any of the employees, and say, hey, is it okay if I come in and work? To me, I would be like, no, because I own the company. I can just go in and start working, and everyone just kind of works around me, right? But I also have the authority to come in and say, listen, guys, you need to, like, do it this way, or you need to, like, this is the rules that we have. You have to be in uniform. You have to, like, whatever. These are rules of a certain company, right? So every company has to follow the rules of Ontario. And then Ontario is a company of Canada. And Canada is a company of UK. And it all started by the city of London. That's in London, okay? That's where it all started. That's where the gate is and everything else. This was to protect us from being enslaved, to make sure we had. So if we were working, we weren't working because we had to. We were working because we wanted to get more than just the basics of life. Basics, food, clothing, shelter, okay? If we wanted more than that, we had to earn it. That was part of being a community and being getting more, right? So this for now, if somebody wants to waste their time, not waste their time, sorry, be productive with their time, working out, making electricity, and they get that electricity, that person has a right then, because, I mean, then it wasn't really a necessity, now it is, but that person's no longer alive, so now we can consider it a necessity for everybody, but a necessity to, it wasn't a necessity at that point, so people would, if they wanted it, they would have had to purchase it, right? But we defined what the necessities are back then, which was food, shelter, water, those sort of basic needs. So we, as the laws opened up and said, oh, you know what, people want this or people need this, it became more of things that we were able to get. So if it was written in law that we were able to get it, then we were able to receive it. And that's how we keep with the being humble about what we have, right? Like, there's a lot of people starving out there in the world, and we're supposed to, with our power, we're supposed to actually go out there and contribute and help them. Okay? But then if we have people representing us, okay, you own a business, someone spills, say, paint all over $1 million carpet. Who's responsible? The business, right? Or the person who's in charge of that business. Okay. if we were to poison everybody and people died, or we administered things out of this country and our elected people were the ones doing this, and then they just wipe their hands away clean, who's responsible?
The corporation.
This is the other questions that come to mind on this corruptness. Another thing that I found is when I decided one day I was just going to look at my numbers online to see if there was anybody with my company name using my company number. And I found something from somebody from Japan using my company number. And BMO is the one who allowed it to happen. And I banked with BMO. And, so I'm a little like, these, we're being stolen from in our identifications. And, it was a food sushi company thing that they sell in like grocery stores or whatever. But technically, with my certificate, I could just go walk in and just grab a whole bunch, walk out, and do anything. I mean, if the police were to come, I'd be like, no, it's mine. Look, you know what I mean? Just prove it, right? So, but that's my identity, right? So it's like, when you have a business, you have an identity number that goes with that business, right? That business name, you have that number. Well, we have that same thing as on our certificate. So our name on the certificate is our business name, okay? And the registration number is our registration number. And it tells you, if you can see, on when you were actually, when it was actually registered, the date of registration is different than your birthday, right? Because it was part of a different sequence to get you into the democratic situation. Now, I think that the main thing is that, like I keep saying, is that you need to realize that you are registered generally. You need to like verify through the acts, like that you are who you are. Don't stop letting the people that are politicians that don't seem to care, allow you to know. So, looking at your birth certificate, looking at the Vital Statistics Act, which is the exact website here is for the preliminaries for Ontario. You can find it at digitalcoms.osgood.york.u.ca/RSO/volume 1914/ISS1/1. And that's the revised statute. Now, all of these comes out in little articles. So mainly, you want to go to the ones that apply to you. Another thing too is Custody of Documents Act.
Custody of Documents Act.
That's correct.
Okay. Charter 125.
These are important ones. I want to share with you guys, okay? Because this will help you more understand what we actually hold, okay? And remember, these ones here are coming back from the preliminaries. Here, hold on.
What is the C125 before the name?
Sorry?
In the title, it says C125.
So that's Chapter 125, but it's Article 128. Okay?
Okay.
And what it says, really interesting in here, that was very in this act, documents shall include whatever is included in the word instrument, as defined in the Registry Act, which I'll get to after I read this part. And any certificate, affidavit, statutory declaration, or other proof as to birth, baptism, marriage, divorce, death, burial, descendants, or pedigree of any person, or to existence of non-existence, of happening, of non-happening, of any fact, event, or event upon which the title of land may depend, and notice of sale or other notice necessary to the exercise of any power of sale appointed. Okay, now an instrument. Let's do this. Okay, I don't have it with me right now. Okay.
Chantal, do you have any questions or?
No.
Fair.
You? I mean, honestly, this is a lot of information. I don't even know if I can think of a question right now.
This is the Land Titles Act.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. It's Article 129.
Of chapter 126.
This, yeah, chapter 126, article 129. And it says, wait, is this the right one? Yes, it is. I wrote down all the numbers basically on there because it's really a big document, which the sections that are to be looked at. So I will find that one that I wanted. It says about the prima facie evidence, which is our birth certificate. These are, oh, sorry. I forgot to read this part though on the Custody of Documents Act, the one that I just had. It actually says that it's an act respecting custody of documents relating to titles to land. So, you know, that's exactly like how they ruled it out.
His Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the Legislative Assembly of the Province of Ontario,
Enacts as follows.
enacts as follows. This act may be cited as the custody of documents over a little bit the other way because we can't, other side. Too much. Nah, you're good now. All right. In the act, document shall include whatever is included in the word instrument as defined by the Registry Act, and also any certificate, affidavit, statutory declaration, and other proof as to the birth, baptism, marriage, divorce, death, burial, descendants, or pedigree of any person, or as to the existence of
Or non-existence.
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, so basically, but it's an act respecting the custody of documents relating to the title to land. That's right. That's what it says just before you read Her Majesty up on the top there, right?
And this was from 1279 or 1379? In the top corner?
This is from 1914.
1914.
Right.
Is that the page number on the top that was 4 digit?
Yeah, look.
Okay.
To revise.
Okay. So these are the first documents written basically in revised statutes that we're putting in records into Ontario. This is what was said. Yes, this is what we're going to accept everything to be. Then you have the Interpretations Act. The Interpretations Act is Article 4. Okay, I don't have that with me right at the moment, so that'll be okay. But if you look up Interpretations Act Article 4 for the 1914, it will actually tell you all the definitions of what proclamation is, who issues a proclamation, what the lieutenant governor is, who the lieutenant governor is. It tells you what the crown is. It tells you everything in that, what everything was supposed to be, right? What every title is, and then it tells you who can administer things under the Great Seal. It tells you many things, but we're also under the table of proclamations. The Vital Statistics Act is under table of proclamations as well, just so you know that. And proclamation, I don't know if anyone knows the value of what a proclamation is. Does anybody? No? Okay, a proclamation is like something very important. Like it's like the vital importance of like what is to be. Okay, that's proclamation, or what is. That's the important part. Like, you know, it's proclaimed that let's say for instance in another context without system, it's proclaimed that a microwave needs a plug, right? It's something needed to make the system work, right? It's part of the system, we'll say, right? And so a proclamation is that it's a very important part of that system. Okay, so a proclamation is something that says, when I'm on a certain piece of land and I'm under proclamation, it means that I have authority on this land. I am part of this land, and I have the right to do what I want to do at will on this land, obviously within human rights and our environment. So, where was I going? Yeah, so that's a proclamation. Now, the only people that can issue a proclamation in Canada, which says in the Constitution, is the Lieutenant Governor. Now, the Lieutenant Governor is a member of the Executive Council, and the Register General is an Executive Council under the title Register General.
It's a job title.
Pardon me?
It's a job title.
Yeah, it's a job title. That's all it is.
Yes.
Right? So you're taking yourself out of your natural capacity, putting yourself in a corporate capacity, because we are a member of the legislation. We are actual walking law. We are actually the walking law of this land. And people need to realize that we are the walking law. And the police were not there to tell us what to do. They were supposed to be there to break things up. Like if there's a brawl or something where they're not supposed to say, oh, you know what? I believe that people should wear a hat. And the police officer has no authority to make that other person wear a hat because that person believes they should wear a hat. That's not their opinion to be able to enforce other people's opinions down people's throats. They're just to say, if two people are fighting, one person doesn't want to wear a hat and another person does, but they get into a fist fight. My job is to, as a police officer, is to break that up. Take it to court, guys. Bring it in front of a judge. You know what I'm saying? Let the judge work out two kinks between two people of the land. Like, for instance, if I see a house and I need it, and I go take it because I'm in need of a house, but another person comes to take that house too, and we're both of same authority, well, how does that get dealt with? Let's see. Let's go by human rights. What do you need it for? I need it to live. What were you going to use it for? I want to make a business out of it. Well, who's going to win? Right? You get what I'm saying? So it needs to break down into those situations. We need to realize that we are that extreme power, because without it, writing it, sending it valuably, like, you know, for instance, I'm starting to realize that really now I've sent out a lot of information, documents to governments and everything. I made a lot of statements, and that's all I made. Maybe I even helped them. You know, I realized that a few people that I actually sent letters to, like Bill Monroe, quit within like 2 weeks after I sent him something. The Minister Baines, Neved Baines, quit as a Minister of Industry after I sent him something. Minister Trudeau has not even responded to any of my emails. Lieutenant Governor said, "Oh, another full moon." Okay, I got this all on emails. These people are gonna be paying an ultimate price. Okay, and when I phone these service places, they don't even understand English, half of English, or they don't understand how to enact the law. And I say, "Well, do you know what legislation is?" No. How do you not know what legislation is? Like, how are you in this office if you don't know what legislation is?
Because
right?
You've been raised in a system where everyone is compartmentalized, and they're told to make this part of the machine, and they're told to make this part of the machine, and they're told to make this part of the machine, which includes the signing of documents. So it's even the court clerk that's actually putting the stamp on, who has the power, that thinks she's just a secretary, or he, when the judge that sits at the front as the puppet that thinks, or everybody attributes to have the power, doesn't have it. And with all of what Chantel and I have been learning from all of what we've been getting involved with Article 61 of the 1215 Magna Carta, is that we are common law, which means we only have to abide by 4 laws, which is do no harm, cause no loss, cause no fraud, or commit no fraud, and keep the peace. Those are the laws that we are bound by. And under Article 61, which that was dissolved or changed 10 weeks later by the Pope, that, or the priest that didn't like the fact that King John had lost the power that he had before as the sovereign ruler of the lands. And so then it was the church that actually changed the law, which is not allowed either.
Well, the church were, yeah, you know, you're right. They're not supposed to be. They're really supposed to be the overseers of the society, just to see, like, you know, when people are hungry, they're supposed to offer them food. If they need shelter, they're supposed to offer them shelter. They're not, yeah, you're right. They're not supposed to be the ones that make any laws. They were bound by. So I guess what happened, and this is, I guess, another context too, is that in the day when we were fighting between the really, I guess, the Ottomans versus everyone else, I don't know how that worked out, but to be protected, you were under God's land, or God. You were protected under God in their scheme of how they were doing things, right? And when you were protected under that God-given right, then you were basically, if anyone tried to take you, they would know that they were going to have a huge army coming for them, basically, like, you know, in some sort of like, basically they weren't going to stand for it. Like people stand tall together, I guess back then. They stand better as a union and as companion and talked about everything, right? And so I think at that point, you know, everyone was more protected. And what they tried to do is they tried to get everyone involved to have these rights because they want everyone to have these rights. And like you said, like these people are geared in, and this is what they did. They took them out of like, I need to say, like, they broke up even the lawyers. Like even the lawyers don't even know sometimes what's going on because, you know, when you're a criminal lawyer, you're only learning criminal, right? When you're learning family law, you're only learning family law, right? So they're not even trying to let these people that are representing us to even know the extent of actually the law, because they're only being deciphered on where they want them to be. Because if they gave them the whole picture, then everyone in right now loses power, because no one would have power because it would be it would just be people power. That's it, period. You know what I mean?
Well,
So
when you hire a lawyer, you actually become a ward of the state because they're then your elected official and you are the child that has no power.
That's right. You gave them permission. But you see, the thing is also the thing with the birth certificate, and I think that's why a lot of people are handing it in. They think that it's actually given the state authorization, but they're wrong, because what that actually is that they actually hold that they have no, they're not allowed to do anything, amend it without your permission at all. So if people are going in and they're fraudulently, they're actually amending. We could be right now. This is the scary part too, is right now there could be people in office saying, I agree to these health conditions. I agree to getting COVID tests or a vaccine. And therefore now when you've made a contract and the police come out and like, what's your name? And like, boom, all of a sudden they take you because you've already in contract. They're going to force you to the contract. And this is what I'm worried about. If they're able to take my business name, what else are they able to do? You know what I mean? So this is where they're stealing from us.
Whatever you give them the power to take, they can. And the other thing I want to just say that I feel very firmly we all need to become more mindful of is that this is not actually a V at all, because Vs are proven and they have a solution. And these experimental biological agents do not have those criteria to justify it as the category it's being put into. So please change your way of framing the circumstances that we find ourselves in, because you're actually giving the problem power indirectly because of giving it that term it doesn't deserve, nor has it qualified for.
Right, okay. Yeah, well, like these
not to be hard, I just am trying to make it so that the people who are watching this later understand that we need to make a collective shift. This isn't me saying down to Steven in any way, because the information that you have gathered is valuable. It's also limited based on law. And we have to actually come together, because all of what you're doing is brilliant. And then with what we've been doing with the Article 61, 12, 15 Magna Carta stuff, what I suspect is that those who have been following that are going to say, yeah, but none of what you say matters because it all came after 1215 Magna Carta. So what we need to do right now as a people is bridge this gap. And we need to say there is value that came after that. And there is order that needs to be restored when redress does come and we do fall under court de jure and the rule of law. So it is not to discredit you and it is not to discredit that, but it is to say that we need to become the bridge and stop saying, well, yours doesn't matter because of this. It just becomes another box that we put God into. And if you're saying the way that you started out in that this is about God's laws and we being God's people, and the reason that the state has separated the people from God, this is what we must return back to, which is why I've been doing so much research and work with Michael Seegers with the teachings of the Ascended Masters, while Saint Germain sits behind me, because he gifted humanity the violet flame to transmute karma, which we're doing. Your evidence is part of that. And so we have to find a way to bring it all together without just automatically discounting what you have done. And also to say that the medical industry, for instance, was founded in the 1900s by the Rockefellers. The legal industry and all of the lawyers who were sworn into the brotherhood to protect and uphold what was said to be in the law book. Well, legal and lawful is different.
Yes.
If we're talking different terms, we're just putting God in different boxes and it doesn't work. So I appreciate your willingness to come forward today. I appreciate your willingness, Chantel, to set this up today for people to gain access to information, and then to also say it is a lot of information, and information is not powerful unless acted upon, which is what we're doing by starting the conversation. So this conversation, I'm aware it's been an hour and a half, and you've got a lot of value. I see from your face you've got more to share, and it's appreciated. And it's not to say this is the end, but it is to say that there is a cap on capacity that people have when listening back and when gaining access to new information that creates cognitive dissonance, that makes it so that this new baby idea you're proposing, and that A61 of the 1215 Magna Carta is, these baby ideas are competing with a giant system that wants to kill these babies to make sure that it remains the one in charge in the sovereign seat that we have thought it deserved, when in fact we are the sovereign individuals that can change the law.
Yeah.
One person can change the law.
Correct.
If we understand how to move forward and exercise our rights and self-advocate, which is exactly what you're proposing and sharing with us to be able to do. We just together need to actually find a common foundation so that we can strive forward with confidence, and we can make it about the solution that comes after redress, because until that is proposed, just like I've said on all the summits, Chantal, you've been there for all of them, it's like if we don't know what comes after, people will not push for it.
Yeah, well, yeah, it can get a little daunting when you don't know, like, if everything freezes. I mean, how do people get food? You know, how do people get any help that they need if everything just stops and we don't have any government and nobody has the approval to release anything, no one has the approval to do anything? Then how do we get, you know, any sort of imports? How do we get anything like that if everything just stops? Like, that's one of my big questions.
The corporate-ocratic takeover, however you say it, I need to figure out how to just pronounce that word.
Yeah, we get rid of all those government. We pull out all those government that are out there. Honestly, yeah, we could actually pull out all the government and we could just advocate for ourselves. And everyone that's working in government should be acting like somebody who works in Tim Hortons or McDonald's. Like, they're people that are working. Everyone is valuable and everyone has a part, right? Whether it's flipping burgers or whether it's signing papers so someone can actually live in a house, or signing papers so someone can get better or good treatment. But these government are not the people that deny us our exercisable functions like medical, housing, food, things like that. They're not able to determine those things for us. We can determine those things for ourselves. And that's why we are a self-governing country. And all the proof is inside the law for us, right? So nobody has right to hold law against us, but we have right to use the law for benefits for us. And so advocating is 100% something that you need to do. You have to know your title. I mean, you can't walk into a McDonald's and be a boss without actually being the boss, right? So how do you walk into Canada and be a boss without knowing you are the title of boss, right? You have to have that in you, and you have to have that confidence in you. Even in the Article 61, the same thing. You still have to have that confidence. Okay, you can't do it without the confidence. You can say, I'm under Article 61. Put your hands behind your back, blah, blah, blah. Give me because they feed off that fear. They know you're afraid. They know that they can bound you. You know, I watched this article with the kids, and I'm sure a lot of other people might have seen this one. The kid that was skating on ice, and he got brutally attacked by 2 women officers while the supervisor was looking. I mean, that right there, you know, the kid comes from a family where his mom is deaf, and it's a brothers of 5, and they played in a thing. Then you had this other kid who obviously probably has a father who's like a lawyer or something, gets right in front of the cop's face, even though that they're giving this guy a hard time who had barely done anything. Go ahead, do something to me. I dare you. Right, like literally like this close to his face. It's like, how come they didn't do anything to him? No, because they know, small town, they know that kid has parents that can protect him, so they don't touch him. Okay? And we need to be that diligent people that have that strength, that when we see it, to stand up for them as well and to do something. You know, when this all started out, I was walking into a Walmart, and and every time I kept going into this Walmart, I kept seeing elderly people being stopped and searched, right? And I was just like, what the heck is going on here? Like, and I finally said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm doing my job. I said, do you know what the Constitution is? Did they commit a crime? Why are you searching their stuff, right? And the old lady, she's like, well, he's just doing his job. I'm like, no, your husband fought for this, probably. Your grandparents fought for this. This is not supposed to be happening. You didn't do anything wrong, you know. And then next time I went there, I didn't see any security. Like, I held them accountable. I said, this is the Constitution. You don't have no right to just stop people like that. Like, you can't. Like, this is where they try bending things and they try and get away with things. And we need to be on top of it right away so that doesn't happen. Because the more we let it go, the more it grows. It's like a flower, or like a tree. If you don't prune it, that's it. It's gonna just get crazy and disastrous, and it'll be out of control. And we need to start pruning our tree like now. So
if we are afraid, then we will contract with a corporation that treats us as a corporate entity that is owned by the bigger corporate entity. And so we have to actually take our sovereignty back by empowering ourselves to know our rights. If we don't know our rights, we don't have any. I learned that when I lost my rights, when I got locked up under the Mental Health Act, under a Form 1 and then a Form 3, which was 2.5 weeks of my life where I was forced to take medication, or I did not know whether I would get out, because there is an indefinite leave option in there. And I didn't know that before I became a victim of the system that helped me understand, hoy, okay, no, who I thought had my best interest at heart don't. And I witnessed experiences and things in there that I never thought that I would be able to say were true. And yet I experienced it. So I know that the truth is stranger than fiction. I have been given a diagnosis only because it's more convenient to control someone who has a label that causes you to conform to fit into society, which is exactly in alignment with what's happening right now collectively, with people using their job as the excuse for committing treason and aiding and abetting treason once we know of it, which is what we do with the notices, with the Article 61 1215 Magna Carta work that is being sent to police to compel them to take action and investigate the treason that they are participating in once we've sent these notices of the evidence that is actually going to give them the information they need to know that not doing anything is committing treason, and they can be held personally responsible, because tribally we will abscond personal responsibility, which is exactly why there is fear after redress takes place as to what then, because we don't want that. It's like the Roman society and culture back when, that just became a bunch of supported people who wanted to be entertained and escape and have all kinds of addictions to feed their egos instead of who they are as God's people. And that is intentionally why it has been taught out of our system.
Yeah, it really has. Yeah, we really need to bring that into our system. We need to teach how to exercise and advocate for yourself, how to write, to, like I said, all of these places that are government offices shouldn't be really government offices. They should be just called the office for homes or the office for whatever. We shouldn't have that title to make them feel that when they're in that office that they have some sort of higher power monarchy or something like that. I don't think anybody should have. I think everyone, if either everyone has a high power monarchy or no one has a high power monarchy, and that's the way I see it to be. You know what I mean? We're either all equal in that same.
Yeah.
It's got to be equal everywhere, all around. Otherwise, there's no point. So, and yeah, so yeah, I think today, I don't know, I think if a lot of people just look at the vital statistics acts, ELAWs, look on your ELAWs, if you actually, I even phoned up the Attorney General. I phoned up the Lieutenant Governor in office before I sent a message asking them if these laws were enforceable. They said it was. They said I needed a lawyer, but these lawyers don't really help us out very much. I mean, for instance, if a lawyer was really doing their job, my niece who wanted out at 16 would have been out because he would have done his homework and he would have seen that she has every right to be out at the age of 16 and that they can't hold her unless she's a criminal, and she wasn't. So you have to look for lawyers that aren't acting in your best favor. Reading the law and knowing they're not acting in your best favor is another way to find our corruptness and the people that are being corrupt, the people that are trying to keep the money going as opposed to actually helping the moral and spirit soul. They'd rather keep the money going. Let's give them a medication that'll keep them hurting more so that we can keep providing them more medication and make more money. It's not about let's get them better. Let's take away all natural resources of natural healing, and let's say we're not going to fund that anymore, and we're only going to fund people that want to give medications. I mean, right there was a shift in our in where society was headed. We should have known almost then that, hey, wait, there's something wrong here. How are you saying that we can't fund people that want to do this, but we can fund this because it's what, a corporation? Yeah, how does a corporation overfund us like this, right? So yeah, I don't know.
Convergence of timelines between the 3D and the 5D that we have an opportunity to create together. We have crystalline DNA coming online right now and being activated, which I know Michael Seeger corrected me and said that's not correct. It's what I've heard. And so who even knows what to believe except to say that we are at the point in history where we can either choose to be natural men and women, or we can choose to become patented GMO products of the corporate identity that will own us, and our patent number will be 060606.
Right? Yeah.
If done with Gates's foundation, which was done in March 2020. If you haven't looked into that, which is not a V that can get us all banished if we mention it or not, who even knows? Some people get taken off and deplatformed and depersoned.
It can be scary, yeah. That's what I think a lot of people are worried about too, right? But
of course,
I think we should have this kind of approach to it. I mean, if we, let's say, somebody has a gun and it has 6 bullets in it, and there's 20 people, but he intends on reloading that gun again to keep killing people until they're all dead. Do we all just wait till we're dead, or do we all run at him and 1-2 lives might fall, but we will fix what is going on, and I think that's a way that we need to look at things, right? Because the more we sit, it's like it's like walk like being on a street and watching every house getting robbed, right? And no one wants to stand up, but yet until they get robbed, but then by the time they get robbed, everyone's too afraid to do anything, where they're already been robbed. They're like, whatever, you didn't care about me, I don't care about whatever. And this is how the system keeps going, and we need to stop that system. We need this sixth degree of what do you hear, that one where you say, well, I'm not going to call because someone else is going to call the police. I'm not going to call, someone else is going to call the police, and then nobody calls the police because everyone has that same thought. I think we need to get out of that mindset, and we need to just say, even if you don't feel it might be right, just to put it out there and say, I'm not sure about this is what I saw, or this is what I feel, and I thought maybe you could look into it. Put some record inside our offices. Put some records so that people actually know that these things are being administered. Because when we say it on the phone without being able to record it or having any proof, we're done. Like they can turn around on you and say that you were being aggressive with them, or you were doing this, and then they take you away and turn you into the bad person, right? So I've done in the last last year and a half, my phone, when I make phone calls out to anybody, or they call me on a dime, my phone starts recording. Because you know what? I'm not gonna wait for these guys to say something that I said that I didn't. Like when I had the land registry guy send me saying that I was forcefully came in, demanding this, demanding that. I went in there, I recorded my whole conversation going in. They refused to even look at my birth certificate. And it's one of the main things that prove that we are a government body. I wanted to fill out a Form 1A. A Form 1 is for non-government bodies. A Form 1A is for government bodies, which means what it's like is like, this is birth certificate is my home. That's my home right there. That gives me my home without servitude, okay? And I'm supposed to go to the land registry, and they're supposed to represent me, make sure I'm the person, not try and fight against me when I'm the person. But they're supposed to, they're like, well, yeah, that's valuable. I better grab that, and I better do what I need to do. If this is why we hire lawyers, because we don't know how to defend ourselves. So when somebody's there for a position and you hand them, this is what their thing's for. If these people give you this, you do what you're supposed to give them a home. But then when you go there and they refuse it, then they're going against the system. And that's not proper when they're like saying, oh no, aggressive, but yet I was like very calm, like I am. I've been this whole time talking with them like this, because and they had even 3-4 people trying to tell me, what do you say, misdirect me, right? And trying to get me going. And you know what, I just counted in my head 5. I wasn't even listening to them. And then I hear what their last thing they said. And I had another thing to say, well, according to this law, I'm that authority too, because they're telling me you have to get this authority, you have to get that authority, you have to do this. And they give you that runaround. Okay, so when you're confident that you are those authorities, that's going to stop. When you're confident that they say, we're going to call the police, and you say, please do, because you're going to be forced to doing this, and then you might even get in trouble for actually refusing me this service. Then we can turn around and we can start making a difference. But until then, just words and us saying things. I mean, it's great to collaborate. It's great to put things in words and on paper, but to push it forward, to be brave enough. Scared, not even scared. Actually, I stopped being afraid after I spoke to the RCMP on the phone and the OPP after I was threatened by an MPP, okay? When I said I was going to expropriate land because I wanted a home. And he said, oh, I'm under authority to call the police if I feel a crime is about to happen. And I said, really? And I hung up and I called the RCMP right away. I told him exactly what I said. And he said, who said that's a crime? Then I was told to call the OPP. I mean, to call my local police. But I called the OPP because I want to know where this corruptness is stemming from. OPP says, I talked with him for like a half an hour. He goes, you're very intelligent. He said, you can help a lot of people with the knowledge that you know. And he goes, you taught me something. I said, I didn't really come. I came from a pretty poor family, and I didn't really have much, but I always had a drive to do something right and positive. And he asked me to like investigate things around the area for him and look out for things. Then he told me to call the police, local police. Now I asked, like, just actually to know with the OPP, which I was also recorded, I asked him at the end of the conversation, 20-30 minutes, I said, so I just want to make sure I have the authority to expropriate land. He said, yes. And I said, so I won't get in trouble if I expropriate land. He's like, oh no. So, I know the law applies, right? So it's like, when I go and do this now, I know I was afraid at that moment when he said that, but then after I spoke to the RCMP and the OPP, I wasn't afraid anymore. And every time they lied to me, and every time they drove me to like saying something that you need this permission, it drove me to knowledge, it drove me to searching, it drove me to not hate. It drove me to like say, in some points, I say to myself, I'm sometimes at fault, not the people working, because I wasn't clear, or I only made a statement. I didn't ask them. I just said, this is who I am. I'm entitled to this. Yes, I'm entitled to this. What place do you want? Or what what is it exactly you want? Yeah, I'm entitled to this, but how do you want it? Where do you want it? In whose name? We're not doing that. And that's what they're expecting from us, right? So you have to be
inaction.
Pardon me?
They're expecting inaction.
That's right. Exactly what they're doing. And sometimes what they do also is if you got something going on, is they'll try and disturb you with especially when you have something good. That's why you want it in writing, because they will try and disturb your mind thought, especially when you're saying something right. You want them to be able to disturb it and then say, okay, and then carry on. And because you don't want them to be able to take that away from you. And they will try. And they will say, cut you off, cut you off, cut you off. But if it's on paper and you can just continue reading, your mind will always be there, right? I mean, even if it's not there, you can still read what's on your paper, So I think that's a lot of, some things that I think a lot of people need to bear ammo with themselves. Even Article 61, it's nothing if you're not confident in it. You know what I mean? If a police are coming to you in front of you, I mean, I've heard lots of people say, this is against rights, this is against human rights, and they still get tackled down to the ground, okay? Because they're not confident, because they don't know where to direct that law and where it comes from. What's interesting is Article 61. It's by King Edward or King George, King George, right?
King John, wasn't it?
King John? Well, I read King George.
King Henry was the one that was on the throne after, wasn't it? Who was a 9-year-old? No, King George was 9, wasn't he? I thought that was in 1216 when they replaced it. There was a 9-year-old on the throne.
Yeah, and then his daughter came after and signed signed the Magna Carta, because the first one was signed apparently under duress,
which was the 1215, which was King John, who got cornered by all the barons that came and said, you need to sign a new constitution and have the People's Protection Clause built into it. So because you're being treasonous and signing under duress in order to give us means to support everything else in here, you need to have that clause in there.
Yeah.
That was King George or King John.
Yeah. So, but even these records here, do for the York and this 1914, they're from King Edward or King George the Seventh. So I'm pretty sure there's some relevance with the Magna Carta and Article 61. I think Article 61, not Magna Carta. Article 61 was signed by all I know is in the readings that I found, because I only did a little bit on that once you guys introduced me to the Article 61, because Magna Carta, when I tried looking at Magna Carta through a lot of research, there was apparently only 5 or 6 pieces that were actually valid, written, that you could actually still see.
The police, there's 4 still valid.
That they were valid, and so I didn't really look too much into that. I saw certain things and I was like, okay, that applies, but if I'm not able to apply any of the stuff I've been applying, what good is this without any of it, right? So it's you're right, there's a bridge, there's got to be a bridge that makes these things happen, and that bridge is us, right? And that's what it is us. And maybe what we need to do is maybe people that we bring our skills together, but then there's going to be people that don't know how to do any of this, whether it's because they need meds, whether it's because they're not incapacity to do it. We need to set up a function that we need to have people looking out for, helping. If we see people in need, that say, hey, look, come over here, we can get you what you need, we'll help you out, you know what I mean? And we kind of hold their hands for them and help them kind of get what they need, because this is what the system's for. This is the reason why we have grocery stores, right? Because we had people come together. But if somebody doesn't know where the grocery store is, then we need to kind of bring them to the grocery store, right? Show them and let them see where the grocery store is. And then after that, they can kind of, help themselves or whatever, right? But people are going to need to know where they're going to go to get the things they need. For instance, when these corporations decide that they want to close down on us, let's open the corporations back up with our power, right? Let's make our own stipulations with our powers. And because those people that run those corporations, you got to remember, but they run under our land, on our land. So when they run on our land, we actually have control of that land, and we need to, even though that they have a president, we have authority to kick out that president and appoint a new one. Okay, and that's the authority we have on our own lands. Everyone has this authority on their land, and it's really, to me, it's like a protection thing. So when you're born in born on a piece of land, that's your home, that's your heart, right? If you're from another place, you might come there and like you might have like say an idea, like I have this idea, but I don't want to put this in my backyard because it's going to make my backyard filthy, it's going to be garbage, so I don't want to do it in my backyard. But would be willing to go and take it into someone else's backyard to do it, right? And this is what's kind of happening in our backyard. Our land, this is our backyard. We have people coming from all sorts of places, even our land here, the people from this land, maybe they're from the East Coast, from the West Coast, and not caring how they make a company and what the company's doing to the land because it's not affecting their land personally. And this is where, if being in control, we would make sure that those things are properly addressed. Like I saw an interesting document about Pierre talking about we could be actually funding slavery, encampments, quarantining, murders, executions, because when you look at it, let's say, for instance, Canada, when they make money, the money goes towards school funding, goes towards medicals, goes towards any sort of help that people might need, or OW, assistance, stuff like that, where other countries will take those contributions and use it to betterment their regime that's bad, right? And this is where it's like, are we actually really contributing to that cause if we're purchasing things that money actually goes towards, right? So if I'm selling a cup of coffee and my cup of coffee is going to go, whatever money I make is going to go towards, taking a fish out of the water, right? I mean, we could look at it in a context where the cup of coffee, I'm going to, put a drop of poison, in the water, right? So to what degree is happening is why we need to take control of our land. And what happens in our land is because we'll make sure that doesn't happen in our land. We'll make sure that doesn't take place. We had we have a lot of rights that a lot of people just need to recognize under these titles that we have to be managers of the properties, the businesses, to be in control and direction. I just need your signature and verification that you're exercising this. Okay, that's there's nothing wrong with that. To know that verification that maybe we shouldn't have to have ID, but we should have a thing that signifies, that says, this person, I don't know, it's so hard to say because then you always it's almost like you're putting an inequality somewhere, but I think the quality stands where you're always on your home. Like when you're on your home, like say your house, you stand on that this is your house and you make the rules in your house and you do everything in your house, and when you can express that feeling of your own home in the land that you're in, I think then it's like you'll be ready to stand before police in a civil way, very civil way, because once you know the law and everything, you don't need to be aggressive because you have the law backing you up. Like you don't need any of that stuff. Because police, for instance, if police come at me and I have it in writing and they say, well, you have to do this, and I say, well, it does say here under law, blah, 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 according to blah, 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 and when you have it on paper, they're gonna listen. They're not gonna touch you because they know that you have it in writing. Writing is law. If you just say it, it means nothing. Writing is everything, right? So you have to have it in writing. If you're going to go to a protest, write it. Write down something that, for instance, the Crimes Against Humanity, Canada, Parliament, one of the best things for Canada you could have, because it holds our accountability to the supervisors and the military of Canada and Ontario, that even if their employees are acting in an act against crimes against humanity, they will be held accountable. And this is called life imprisonment, not like anything small. This is life imprisonment. And that is chosen by you, me, and all the people of the land. not by the international courts. We get to choose if those people were committing those crimes. We get to choose. So we don't like death, so we put them in rape or jail for life. And that's what will happen to any people that, for instance, I've already told them, and I put it out there, that they have to basically investigate. Anybody who's put in an order should be arrested. So anybody who put in an order to make this happen are supposed to be arrested. They should have arrested them the moment they even tried to make an order, right? But guess what? I had to remind our police force, I had to remind our attorney general, and put notice, look at this law. Do you see what this says? It says you're accountable too. It doesn't matter who you are. Crimes against humanity, it holds everyone accountable. It doesn't matter what title you hold. And the people that can prosecute that are the registrar. You see why that's important? If we're titled registrar generals, the only people that can prosecute that is the registrar. That's the rule of law.
Which is why it's about restoring the jury of the people back into the courts.
Yes.
And to restoring rule of law, which is more in alignment to our common natural laws.
Right.
And it is hard to do any of the recording and the requirements and the asks when we're in the system that is designed to save itself or yourself significant time, energy, money. So we're going to be gathering tomorrow, February 25th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Would love for you and everyone else who is watching this message to join us. It is via Zoom. We do want for warriors to be able to recognize one another like what we are doing when we gather, to get the information that is going to help us say, look, you've got great truth, Steve. Thank you for everything that you did to get it. And my experience of getting locked up and then having a space on there, as every form in the Mental Health Act does, that says you need a physician's permission to actually get assistance and to be able to get yourself out, even though it said to be a voluntary form. And when I said, I, Laura Jean Ellen Hamilton, born on the 10th day of the 10th month in 1987, need no physician to declare me to be free and able to make my own decisions, they did not give me the credit that was due, because I was already locked in and contracted with something I hadn't understood when I said, oh, okay, well, sure, you must be doing what is best for me, because that's what I was always taught was the truth, but it's not. So that's why we're gathering here. Thank you for everything that you have shared today. Chantel, Steve, do you have any final words before we end?
I do one more thing. I think that if we have all the people that are really brave enough to stand up, like I've seen a few online that have stood up, I think if we get a few of us together, like together, like real time, maybe we could actually wake a lot of people up, Maybe if we all walk in together into a police station and say, we have the right, this says it in this law, and we have an agreement with a big group of people that aren't afraid and know, maybe we can actually get the police on our team and start arresting those crooks that are actually making all of those crooked stuff going on. Yeah, but that's all I got really to say on that. Yeah.
Is this what you sent this to me earlier? This is what you were talking about that you didn't have, Section 4 or Article 4, sorry. All the definitions.
Yeah, I don't have like all, like I have like I don't know how to do all the forms in that. Like that's all like, but oh yeah, that's that's what Section 1. Yeah, that's all that's all from the preliminary. All those definitions are from the preliminary of the Ontario. So those are all the first definitions of all the words.
Yeah. All right. Just thought I would check that if that's what you were talking about earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Beautiful. Well, what an informative morning. I will just chop the top and tail of it and put this up so others can have a perspective. I feel like there are pieces of this that could definitely be cut so that then we could give people segments and appetizers instead of the whole buffet that just becomes too much and then they get a bellyache and don't want to come back. So, we're dealing with huge amounts of cognitive dissonance with all that we're doing. And so we are just looking for truth. And we also recognize we are far more powerful than we were ever taught. And we're even more powerful when we come together. So thank you again for today, and look forward to seeing you on the 25th at 4 p.m. to share what we talked about today and make sure that it is not just dismissed what people are doing with good hearts, because that is another piece in all of this. Warriors are founded in love and truth and justice as the foundation, and that is what the Peaceful Inner Warriors United movement is about. So we don't necessarily have all the answers off the top of our heads, but in our hearts we do. So let's get back to that, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Toodaloo.
See ya.
Awesome. All right, recording done. Well, it's not, but like that's the end of what other people will see. So thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah. Sorry, I've never done that before, so like maybe I'll try and get myself more prepared on certain stuff and get things more organized. But yeah, I mean, I've done. Want to hear what I wrote out to the Attorney General and that? Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
And I wrote it out in a form that should be applicable to them. And
read the whole thing, all of the information, and what we can also do in terms of, I know tech might not be your thing so much, but with all the documents you've been showing us, what's really easy to do via Zoom is to just reference those documents in the electronic version, and then I'll just do a screen share. So then you choose the screen that you want to show, and then you literally just share what's there. So you can do what you tried to.
I just did it. I'm just wanting to show you this part. Continue with what you're saying.
Yeah. So exactly, you can do this too. So what Chantel is showing you, you can show us too. So when we do come together, if you can have your documents prepared virtually in just separate tabs, then we'll just go from one tab. You show us what you want to show us. We'll be able to cut and paste, so you don't have to, the cuts, the ums and the ahs and the I gotta find it here and there. It's just like, Chantel, go to evidence and relevant documents, and you just click tabs, and then just to show him.
Oh, you want me to?
Yeah.
What do you want me to do on?
Evidence and relevant documents. So it's just like all we're like, if you want to set it up like this so that we can see everything that you're wanting us to see, and then it's just like your next document. Okay, the next piece of evidence I have for you is evidence and relevant documents. Click on that tab, Chantel.
I am on that tab. That's it. Just
yeah. So, but like that's just so it's just like it just takes you to a different tab. Do you know what I mean? And then we can just flip, and it just is so easy on Zoom.
Is this the we'd be doing as a group? Is this a new article being brought out, or is this like a new? Or is this an existing one?
This is from the Practical Lawful Dissent. They've just put up all of the evidence that they have.
Evidence. Oh, you want? Oh, okay. Evidence, no problem.
And that's why I got to this section, because you guys were talking about who was who, and this one is the, King Edward III. He was, this is the.
I even found laws from Ontario that is in 1791, because one of the laws in Ontario today says that the land rules are as stood on 1723, but the next constitution after that was like 1791. And even in that, it's very clear on that. Maybe I should bring that up too. I mean, this all goes so far and deep. But Chantel, do you have that one? I can't, because it's on the phone that I'm using as the phone with video. That one where I said share all, that document share all?
Yeah.
Can you send that to her so she can see? Because this is the document that I I think a lot of people should carry with them, especially when they're going on a protest. 100%. I think this will be the document that will save a lot of people.
Hold on.
See, this is just what people need to know what to reference. And then if you can come tomorrow, can you make it tomorrow, Steve?
Where at?
It's just online. It's another Zoom meeting at 4 p.m.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, if you can do that, then I'll post this. And then I've mentioned the summit tomorrow. And so that way people can be able, you can share more perspectives, you can listen. Maybe we can even cut out a little piece of today and then show that, because ultimately what we do need is that bridging a gap.
Yeah. And then you'll also see the one that'll help get any family terminate their service with the CAS, like that. I sent another file that Chantal also that she has as well. So maybe she can send that to you. So what I put in that one is I actually put down the whole thing that makes the person who they are, that says where their power comes from. All they have to do is fill out their certificate information on it and then sign it, believe who they are, and it's good as golden. And that they're like, and if they don't know how, I can sign on their behalf. If they have children in the CAS, I can sign as that minister. They sign, then some other witness signs as well that this was a contract that happened. We mail it out. Within 10 days, that child better be returned home. Otherwise, they're going to have some big problems. So it's all written in the law. And Chantal has that. So maybe you could post that kind of stuff. These are things that, first of all, these children are going to be vaccinated if we don't get them out. We need to get them out. Okay. These parents need to get their kids out of there. This thing, it's law. If everyone wants to verify, it shows how it is law, in accordance with what section and what articles or what law, it's all there. So they can read through it to verify that this information is correct. And then once they see, wow, it is true, this is the law, it does say that, because it'll be right there, then they can sign it for themselves and put their own information. But again, if they don't, they can get people like me or like someone else that might say, hey, holy shit, that is the law. I can actually apply that. I am the minister. Here's the law that says I'm the minister. I will sign it for you. And then they have to comply, because in the CAS system, the minister is the final decision, no matter what. So, yeah, these are some of the things that we have, right? So Chantal will give you that as well. Yeah, so basically both, okay, the CAS form and the form about the crimes against humanity.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if that's the one you're talking about.
Yes. So both of them. Okay. So you know the CAS form, the one that I got that you have there, it also has the first part of it, but then it has the form part, the second part, right? That first part can be used all across the board when exercising the right. Okay. So that one will exercise almost all across the board as the power, where you are and how you got the power and what power you have. And then those other part of it, the second page of it, is just saying that this is an act respecting this, and these are the people responsible, and this is who executes it, and you sign for it. So that one form is just like a form. It's just like a regular form, but that first page is saying, I am the power that can sign this form. Right? So that's what that is. So that first part there in CAS can be used unilaterally across the board everywhere. Just know that that's your first introduction to any public office or anything that you want to use. That's your introduction. Comes to pharmacy, like you're being forced to quarantine, you're even jailed. That'll get you out of jail too. I'm not saying that we should release a lot of criminals out there, but there are a lot of people that aren't really truly criminals out there in jail. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like one of those things, we can actually release people because we're the final say, we are the judges. And yeah, completely. I'm going to try and get like all the things that point to exactly who we are under these titles. And then my job's going to be to try and not convince, but show everybody that you are the title that this is allowing. Like, and I'll show it, right? And it's going to be up. This is, I guess, where it comes to the mind, the war of the minds. I guess it comes down to that. You know what I mean? Like, I know this. I know my titles. I identify my titles like this, like my name, like my name. You get what I'm saying? Like, you can't say I'm not Steve Martin because I know I'm Steve Martin. Just like you can't say I'm not a registered general because I know I'm a registered general. So you understand? You have to have that connection that is like your name attached to you. You have to have that confidence to you, right? It's not just a title. It's actually like your name. You have to remember when you use it like that. It's like that's your name.
N
So it's 2 in 1. Pardon me?
N is in. Title is what we're talking about, and ment is the mental body. So
Exactly.
it's your in knowing of the title that you're standing under.
That's right. If you don't know it, then I mean, if you know it, nobody will walk on you. I'm telling you, because they know. Imagine a police comes in and says you're a registered general. Okay, first of all, they're either gonna have to arrest you because you're falsely accusing yourself as a title, right? Which is what they used to. So look at this research actually back, and I looked at this. People that tried to do what I did, they actually got death penalty for it. Okay, they got death penalty. You know why? Because they didn't find them valuable. But guess what? They found out later on that they had truth and that they were rightful in their claim.
Of course.
But you see, that's why they got rid of probably death penalty, because they would have done the same thing to me. And that was another reason why I was like, okay, I don't have the death penalty. It says here, as long as I do anything with good faith, I can't get in trouble. So I'm good. That's it.
So the only thing that is going to be interesting tomorrow is anyone standing under Article 61 of the 1215 Magna Carta is not able to participate in the legal arena because all of that is said to be null and void. Therefore, participating in it is said to be aiding and abetting treason, which means that all of your great information under that premise is null and void, and to actually play in that sphere would be to make ourselves
Actually,
abetting the
come to think about it, there's still the natural people under acting as natural beings. They actually have rights too, because it does say that basically every title that's given under the law, it says that they have the same rights and capacity as a natural person. So it already says that like the natural person can do it. So the natural person can do it. So I get what's going on, like in terms of like how it is, but I think it's more easier to introduce the law as a natural person as a title than it is as a natural person for them to exercise these rights. Does that make sense? Like, I don't believe in the system, but I also believe, like, I don't believe in them having any legal control standpoint or anything, but I believe that we need a system. But should our system be a legal system, or should it just be a system?
well,
and then we have our law. Pardon me?
Legal is not lawful, is what is always said as the differentiation with the 1215 Magna Carta, because it's lawful, whereas the legalese that's used is in the corporate domain, which is not common law. So these are terms and distinctions and clarifications and things that we don't have the answers for specifically today. And it's been a very powerful discussion, and I'm tapped out, to be fair. Like, I don't have capacity for more information today, and so it's just like I really want this to go where it needs to go, and it's not necessarily because Chantal and I are the ones to best receive the information, but maybe somebody that sees what we've done is the right person. And it is about gathering the ones that need to get the message, that have answers and keys like what you've collected, and then we can all come together and then put forward the piece. Because the crazy thing is, when I got sectioned, I basically called myself into the police and said that they were corrupt and I didn't know who to call, because the gangs are operating on public streets, main streets downtown, and it's like, WTF? How is that okay if you guys aren't in on the game? Which means then, are they actually the corrupt ones that we've been taught to look down on, or are they just family men and women that may have gotten involved with some darker things because that's what happens in the shadows, when the truth is the ones that we've been told to revere and respect are in truth the criminals that have just been legalized, and that's the fiction that we are here to bust. So that is the cap on today. You're coming tomorrow, so we will say have a great day.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you very much, Steven.
Amazing. Thank you.
Bye.
Amazing. Bye. All right. I'm going to end the meeting. All right. Give you a shout.
Yeah. Bye.
Perfect. No, that works. Okay, good.